A join query structure can be intimidating sometimes, and there will be these join queries that you will write very soon that, you'll just want to print out and go show some of the relatives at Christmas or Thanksgiving, to let them know that your mother-in-law hadn't been right all along. So let's start off with a very, very simple example of join query structure. Now, this is the table and the situation that we saw in the video Understanding Joins. We talked about how we got to the place of even needing joins thanks to normalization. But notice we have in a table, and we're going to call this right here Table A, and this will be Table B to make it very, very simple in our code example you're going to see in just a moment. We're going to pull the first name and the last name from this table, and then we want to see the policy information on this table. So how are we going to do that? Because we want to see Harry Smith and the fact that he's got an auto policy. We want to see Angela James, the fact that she has an auto policy. And then number 3 is Frank Hornsby. And we want to see 3 rows, auto, boat, and motorcycle, right? So how are we going to write a query to do that? Because retrieving the policyholder's name and the policy type now requires a join query because obviously those columns are in 2 separate tables. So writing a join is very, very easy as long as you follow the structure. So we have Table A and then we have Table B, and we're going to join those. Now here is the query. Now let's go through this. Notice I'm saying select A period first. That's the first name column here. Don't worry about this A. I'm going to talk about it in just a moment. Then we're pulling the last name column from Table A. And then we're pulling the policy column from B. And notice we're saying from Table A as A, talk about that in a moment, join Table B as B on, notice the on keyword. So we're saying select these columns from these 2 tables. Table A, join Table B on where the Table A's CID column equals the Table B's CID column. Now notice a couple of things about this query. First of all, Table A is the left query. We can see that Table A is the left query because notice the word join right here. Table A is on the left side of the join statement. Table B is on the right side of the join statement. So Table B is the right table. And you will always hear these things referred to as left table, left outer join, right outer join, those sorts of things, okay? But then there's one more thing. Note that we're using table aliasing, and you will see this all over the place in your table joins. Now, this is very similar to column aliasing that we're doing, but it's got a little twist to it. This also gives you a hint as to how the SQL Query Optimizer is reading and invoking your queries. Notice, we said when we wrote the query, Table A as A. So now this alias A points to Table A. And so we're pulling the first and last column, or the first name, last name column out of Table A. So we put A dot first. This means Table A, which is pointing to this Table A right here. So lowercase a points to Table A spelled out. So lowercase a dot first. So that's the first column in A. Okay, first name column in A. Then the last name column in A. Then we're pulling the policy column out of Table B. So anywhere, once we alias a table, anywhere we refer to that table, we have to use the alias name in a query. Okay, so notice we used it here, we used it here, and we used it here. So in all those places, we have to use the alias. Now, when you write this query, it's a little funky because you start typing first, right? You type select and you start putting your columns, and you have to think, I'm going to rename that first table A, and I'll rename the second table B. And you spell out all your columns and you point to the right tables, and then you put from, and then you will put your aliasing here. Well, then notice also B, we alias Table B as lowercase b, and so we use that there and there. So you can see how it's referring based on those aliases. Now, what's interesting is some of you programmer types may think, wait a minute, how are you doing that? Because it looks to me like you're declaring a variable right here, A, before you're actually naming the variable, or you're using a variable here before you're actually declaring it down here, right? And technically you are. However, when SQL processes this query after you type it and when you execute it, SQL goes through, and the first thing it does is it checks to make sure that all the objects that you're referring to actually exist. So it goes through and it says, okay, what objects is he looking at? I don't see the one there. Here's an object, table A. Do we have a table A? Okay, it's right after the from command. Yes, we do have a table A. Oh, and they're aliasing that. Okay, so now we've declared A as being equal to table A. And let's keep going. Yeah, there's a table. There's another object, table B. Oh, they've done another variable. So B, table B is what B is pointing to. And so now that we've got our objects, I don't see any more objects. Now that we've got those resolved, now let's go look at the rest of the query. Then it starts to parse through the rest of the query. So the query optimizer doesn't exactly read these queries in the same order that we do. Now, that's a little outside the subject matter of this particular course, but it's some fascinating things. And in the course wrap-up, I'm going to point you to some other resources that will really help you understand querying and working with SQL Server and everything. But for now, if you can remember this join structure right here, notice we did select, we listed our columns, and we named the tables the columns we're in using the alias. We said from, we listed our tables with the join between them, and then on keyword led us to the common column between the two tables that we wanted to see equal. And anywhere in A, CID equals B, CID, it will return those rows. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Make it that simple and build from there.